spooky friends, and welcome to another episode of the Scaryish podcast.
Woo!
I'm Rom Grace's and Diaz, and we
Hello.
are here to chit-chat about some cool things.
Indeed we are. I had to do a little bit of a quiet woo because we're recording pretty late. It's 2 a.m. on Cinco de Mayo, so happy Cinco de Mayo, happy Taco Tuesday, and I guess it's a little bit late, but happy May the 4th, so Star Wars Day just passed. Pretty excited for this episode. Robin, what are you going to be covering?
I am going to be covering a couple different urban legends that have a little ounce of truth or are completely true.
Wow, that's interesting. I've not heard a lot of urban legends that are completely true, so that'll be really fun. I'm going to be covering a bizarre disappearance. In fact, I'm going to be covering multiple bizarre disappearances that are connected to each other, so I'm pretty excited for that. But before we get started, if you have any stories that you would like to share with us, whether they're about urban legends or bizarre disappearances or any of those sorts of things, we have ghost stories, we get paranormal, supernatural, spooky, sometimes true crime. Feel free to send those in to us. We would love to read them on our Storytime episodes. Robin, where can folks send those?
So you can send them to storytime@scaryish.com or go to our website, scaryish.com. We have a contact us page. You can fill that whole thing out and it sends it to us that way. We also have a whole bunch of different social media outlets, so things like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and you can always message us on there. We've gotten quite a few stories through that, so yeah. So I just want to let everybody know that we have new merch coming, new merch out on our Teespring store and pre-orders on our Etsy store. So if you folks want to check out the new t-shirts that we got, I really like the new designs. They're super cute. And yeah, there's links on our website. Go check those things out. New stuff.
Indeed. And also, we've been doing Saturday streams. A lot of you folks have been joining us. It's been really cool. Every other Saturday, we're changing what we do. So we have one Saturday where we'll watch a movie together. I don't know if we're going to keep doing the watch a movie thing because it is a beta, and we just did Friday the 13th, which was super fun. The 2 weeks before that, we did a stream of The Woman in Black with Daniel Radcliffe. And I think we're going to do I Am Legend in 2 weeks. However, we stagger it because every other Saturday, which is going to be this Saturday, we play a video game that's horror-inspired or horror-themed. And we're going to be doing Blair Witch, which I'm pretty excited about. I've heard that it's terrifying. So if you join us this Saturday at noon Pacific time, we are going to be streaming Blair Witch. So we hope you do join us at twitch.tv/Scaryish podcast or youtube.com/Scaryish. So I guess we can go ahead and just jump right into it. I think you're going to be going first, so take it away.
All right. So I love covering urban legends because I just think that they're so interesting. I know I've done like bodies under the bed before, and a few other urban legends, and
wasn't like bodies in hotel mattresses,
like in mattresses. Yep.
Yeah, I remember that one.
That is totally real.
I remember when you did that episode, I realized someone listened to our show where I work because they came up to me and they're like, "That's one of my biggest fears every time I go to a hotel. It's like there's a body in this mattress." I was like, I had never really thought of it until you brought it up, and then I was like, oh yeah, I remember 4 Rooms, that movie where they find a body in the mattress, so it totally makes sense. Yeah, there's a movie where they find a body in the mattress.
Oh wow, I didn't know that. I know in American Horror Story there's a scene in Hotel where like bodies start coming out of the mattress, but
right, and then there's Johnny Depp where he goes into his mattress in Nightmare on Elm Street, but that's a little bit different. So,
but yeah, so these urban legends have either a little truth to them, or are based in truth, or are absolutely real, like it happened, it's a thing. I don't plan on stopping covering urban legends. I think they're absolutely interesting, and the fact that so many of them are based in truth is both terrifying but also intriguing.
Indeed.
Alright, so this first one that I'm going to cover is going to take us over to Switzerland, where for the last decade the town of Mollis, definitely not pronouncing it right, has been witness to terrifying sights of what has been known as Le Lion, or the ghost or hermit of Mollis, since 2003.
Interesting.
So it's a really recent one, and I lately have been covering topics that are more recent, like in the 2000s, which I think is very fun for me because it's a lot different than things we used to cover where it's like, this happened in the 1950s or 1930s or even earlier than that.
Yeah, some of my stuff has gone back like 10,000 years.
Yeah. So the humanoid entity is known to haunt the nearby Freiburg Forest, I don't know how to pronounce that, dressed in what some describe as a gimp suit. But when I hear that, I think
Pulp Fiction's the first thing that pops into my head.
Well,
when
I
hear
think
that.
of the latex suit in American Horror Story, and I know you didn't watch the first season, but it made like a cameo in Apocalypse.
I do remember
so you've seen that, yeah. So you've seen that season, and I think what they meant, it wasn't necessarily a gimp suit. Maybe it was like, it's not that particular gimp suit. It's one of those suits that hunters go out to wear, like a ghillie suit type thing. I think that's kind of what direction what with this website that I read that off of was going for, because there's no way that this creature was wearing a latex suit where it was. Okay,
it would be a little bit more terrifying if it was.
It would be a little bit more terrifying, because that person in American Horror Story is absolutely terrifying. Big ol' no on that one. So to top that suit off, it has a gas mask. So a full-on gas mask that completely covers their head, and other sightings have him or it wearing a boiler suit. And a boiler suit is like the jumpsuit that Michael Myers wears in Halloween.
Okay. So
that blue one-piece jumper type thing.
It's almost like a mechanic's one-piece suit. I don't even know what to call it, so I have the picture in my mind. Yeah, so keep going.
That's when I googled boiler suit. That's what came up. So I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Okay. Both seem to scream serial killer. If it's the latex gimp suit, if it's the ghillie suit, whatever. If you're out there walking around in the woods like a creeper, it all screams serial killer. But I can't judge. Maybe it's just a fashion choice. Maybe you just like it. Who knows?
And maybe you're out there hunting and it's not like your permanent thing to do.
On top of all this is a strange looking cloak. This whole image has me thinking that they're those creatures in Fallout 76. If you haven't played...
no one knows because you haven't played it.
Yeah, if you haven't played Fallout 76, they're just the miners in that game that live in the mines. They are in these cloaks and they have these masks on, and they grunt constantly in a non-sexy way. But they're just short little creatures that walk around in hooded cloaks, and you can never see their faces. It's just like masked faces. That's just what it reminded me of. All this could probably just come down to a person dressing up and walking around in the forest doing whatever it is they do, though some theorize that it's the ghost of a soldier or some type of cryptid or alien. There's only been one photo taken of this being by some unnamed hiker that was there with their kids, and it was published in a French publication, like a newspaper or something like that, called Le Matin, M-A-T-I-N. I don't speak French, never took it in school. I only took Japanese and American Sign Language, so that's not my jam. Probably saying all the French words wrong. I'm so sorry. The photographer claimed that they came across this figure near the marshes and approached them until they were about 12 meters away. And that's a little less than 40 feet, so that's not that far away. But they got super duper close, but they were with their kids. So it's like, if I weren't with my kids, I'd get closer, but I was with my kids, so I'm not gonna, I
was gonna say, you toss a kid at it and you run away, right? That's what you're bringing up because you're with your kids.
So according to this photographer's claims, quote, it had a military cape, boots, an army gas mask, an old model, I think. It measured more than 1.9 meters. It stared at me, then turned his back on me and left in silence, end quote. And 1.9 meters is a little over 6'2".
Yeah, I was going to say, that sounds tall.
So 6'2" is not that tall.
It's pretty tall.
You also have to keep in mind that this guy saw it from 40 feet away. So you can't really know exactly, it was 1.9 meters.
There's so many people that try and judge height from that far away, and I just don't understand how they claim to do it. Unless they're standing next to something that is like an exact
can compare
measurement.
To yourself or something like that.
But even comparing it to yourself from that far away, it just seems very inaccurate. You know what I mean?
It's probably entirely inaccurate. But in hindsight, the witness determined that the sighting was pretty benign and passive, but at the time was absolutely disturbed by what he saw. So his plan was like, okay, if I didn't have my kids with me, I'd walk up to him or it and be like, yo, you're freaking everyone out. You need to cut it out. But because he was with his kids, he's like, I can't do that. I'm not going to risk my kids' safety.
It sounds like an excuse to not approach something that you were terrified. If my kids weren't here, I would have done that for sure.
The photo that we will post on Instagram later was taken on their cell phone as this ghost was walking away. And it hasn't been proven whether or not that photo is a hoax just yet.
I was going to say, you've shown it to me, right? That's the one you sent to me?
I sent it to you earlier.
It looks like
real.
It looks like a person walking away.
Yes.
Whether or not it was someone that they just went out there and they were dressed like that.
Exactly. It's
you can't know.
How do you know that it's not just some friend of theirs that is just out there? But if you're bringing this up and you're saying it, I feel like if you're the only one that's ever done that and brought this photo up or anything, that I kind of want to believe it, but I'm that person who's like, I want to believe, you know?
Yeah, I'm a little bit skeptical on it because I saw it and I was like, oh, it looks like a person. It looks like a hunter that has...
It legitimately looks like some dude walking around in a camo rain poncho or something like that. And
it doesn't look like anything you couldn't go to Dick's and just pick up in 20, 30 minutes, toss on, and then head to the woods.
It just looks like a normal person who's a much larger frame, though, like wider shoulders and stuff like that. And you can only see the back of it, so you just see the...
Yeah, you don't even know if they have the gas mask on.
Yeah, you just see the cloak from the back, so who knows? You know, you can't really say. And that's the whole part of urban legends. It's you can't really tell, you know, it's just the story that gets passed down and passed down and passed down.
Right.
This figure has frightened residents enough that police have been trying to search for him, and it said he walks the same route in the woods every day and has for a decade.
So then why is it so hard to find the damn guy?
All right, you'd imagine that you'd be able to catch him if you knew the route he took every day, but I don't know why they didn't actually catch him. Maybe they had a particular time and they switched it up and they're just like, you can't catch me, you know what I mean?
So he's the gingerbread man, is what you're saying?
Pretty much. That's been my go-to. I always yell that during, playing Forza or something like that. Or Forza, if that's how you say it. Anyway, in 2013, a resident of that town was shocked when the entity appeared holding a bunch of flowers. And this resident was named Marianne Desclos. Totally butchered that French name because there's probably some elegant way to say that last name, right?
I'm not even going to try and attempt
it.
I'm so glad it's not in my script.
So she recalls her run-in with this creature, this person, and it was a rainy Sunday. They had a cap, a dark cloak, and a gas mask on. So a lot of people say this thing has this full gas mask on, right? What could possibly be going through his head? I don't know, but it was unforgettable and unpleasant. I hope I don't run into him again, end quote. Her encounter is similar to many that have seen the entity, where they see it, it doesn't really do anything to them, but they're so unsettled that they're like, I don't want to see it again. I'm good. And what's sad about all those claims and all those comments is that there's no credit to the unpleasantness of their existence. The ghost has never put forth any threatening or malevolent behavior towards any witnesses at all, and I can understand the sighting of someone dressed like that might be a tad bit terrifying, but if their arms were full of flowers, I probably wouldn't get the feeling that they were malevolent or wanted to hurt me or anything like that, unless the flowers were covered in blood. But still, there's no crime that has ever been committed that has been attributed to this hermit person, this ghost, you know?
Maybe they were just aware of the fact that COVID-19 was coming.
Right.
And they were just
They're prepared.
They're completely covered and they have their gas mask on, but they still want to take someone flowers.
Yeah. Despite lack of evidence, residents have made an effort to avoid entering the woods. And I just think that's, one, really sad, but two, maybe that's what they want, you know?
Yeah, it's pretty understandable, though. I think if you saw someone, regardless of if you think it's a ghost or just a person wandering around, you'd be like, yeah, don't go out there. It could be dangerous.
There are a lot of theories as to why this person or creature is out there. Maybe they're a doomsday prepper or someone who just needs to take a breather each day to themselves. Some say it's someone with a terrible skin condition or deformity or something like that, and they just grew tired of being made fun of, so they left civilization and kind of went off on their own.
That's sad.
Hence the gas mask and being completely covered from head to toe. It does seem like the creature known as Le Lion has taken his own life, though. So, it's reported that in 2013, his clothes were found in the woodlands along with a cryptic note. And this note, when translated, read, "The risk of a hunt for the beast." That's just one of the lines in it. I don't know if that was the title of it, but it's definitely in the letter that was written. When this information was translated by a French news entity, they translated the note as saying that this thing decided to commit suicide. I don't know why, but that's just what they got from it. I don't know if it explicitly said that. It said that this commonly seen entity walking through the forest has seemed to have abandoned its activities, like it just stopped walking, it was totally gone. This note has come to be known as the death certificate and will of the ghost of the Malus, as it was left with all his clothes and everything that went along with it in the forest. It just makes sense to me that they were just like, here's all my stuff, whatever, I don't even need it anymore, you guys ruined everything.
Even if it was a hoax, it could just be them being like, this is how I'm done doing this hoax. It takes too much time, people keep looking for me, and everyone's creeped out by me.
But they'd been walking this route for 10 years.
Yeah.
So it can't have been a hoax.
That's
because why would you do it for 10 years?
It could be a hoax that could be passed down between people, or one person that just repeatedly does it just to mess with people, where they're finally like, I'm tired of it. I'm just going to go ahead and move on with my life.
In this letter, the person accused that one French news outlet, the one that first posted that photo of them in the newspaper, they blamed that newspaper or news article, whatever, of murdering, quote unquote, a harmless being by revealing its existence, which is absolutely depressing. Like, the fact that now there's so much attention on it, they're like, thank you for ruining everything. The note spoke of the quote-unquote hunt of the beast and the recent exposure to its existence, leading it to even further exposure. This made me go, maybe this person is just a germaphobe, and in this day and age, maybe they were way ahead of the curve.
Right.
But maybe they're just trying to keep away from everyone else and stay to themselves, and then this photo of it gets published, and they're like, well, fuck, what am I gonna do, you know? Now people are searching for them and interrupting their daily walks, and they're just like, I just wanted to keep to myself, dude.
I want to avoid human beings, which is something I think most people can understand.
Well, why else would you dress up like that? That's super intimidating, you know what I mean? The note continues on, saying that this unwanted attention has forced them to end their daily walks, which was considered to be quote-unquote happiness therapy, which is also super, super depressing. The end of the note mentioned an Austrian author named Soccer Massock. So wrong.
It sounded fine. I'm sure it's good.
I'm butchering all the names today. I seriously know, like, zip French. Apparently, this author entered into a relationship with a baroness. He was obligated to sign a contract forcing him to do whatever it was that the baroness wanted, and it was just a masochistic relationship that this author had. So the fact that they put this author into their note, people are thinking, well, maybe that has something to do with who they are, and that's why they put that author in there. But no one's really been able to figure it out. To me, it kind of seems like they haven't necessarily committed suicide, that it's just them going into hiding,
right,
or something like that, or resetting, like, great, now I have to find another outlet to do what I want to do. It's still a mystery as to whether that's the case or not. There's no random body that's ever been found that they can kind of connect to it.
It's weird they would say committed suicide, you know? If there's been no body, it was just a note, and not knowing what's in the note obviously makes it more difficult.
I think when they left all their stuff there with it, they're like, okay, maybe we can just up the news and sell more papers by saying this or something.
Right, like, this thing is no more type of
thing. There also isn't evidence as to whether or not this is a man or woman. So the person that photographed them even says, like, it could be a he or her. There's no way to know. Or it could be just a they. You can be whatever you want to be. The The mask obscures the face, which prevents any type of identification. I say leave the thing alone and just leave it. Stop searching the forest for them.
So if it's not messing with you, then just don't mess with it.
Yeah, and they've gone out of their way to keep to themselves and tell people, like, leave me alone. Leave Brittany alone! So just leave them alone. That's how I feel about it. And I feel so bad that this happiness therapy has been taken away from them, kind of thing. And I get it. This is just some person, something that's out there. And I shouldn't feel bad, but I do feel bad. And they haven't been seen since November of 2013. So
it's a long time.
That's a long time.
It's almost 7 years.
Oh my gosh. All right. So that is Le Lion. And the next urban legend that I'm going to cover is that of the funhouse mummy. I thought this one was interesting because I've heard so much about it.
I've never heard of this one before.
You've never heard about it? It's
No.
like been in episodes of TV shows like Bones and stuff like that, where they...
How could I have missed that?
Oh my
I
God.
barely ever watch Bones.
Okay, this one is probably one that many of you, maybe not Adam, but many of you have heard about over and over again. And it's been reiterated in different horror movies and TV shows, and things like that. Like this whole idea of finding a mummy in a funhouse. Okay, so there's the legend goes like, there's a funhouse or a haunted house at a fair or a carnival.
So fun houses are the houses with mirrors, right?
Or just like random like mazes and stuff like that.
Okay. A place where I could expect to be eaten by a killer clown if I was a kid.
Sure. And it's at a fair or a carnival or whatever you want it to be. Within this fun house of horrors, there's what looks to be a mummified body hanging there. And these kids are poking at it and laughing and thinking it's just a papier-mâché prop or something, only to have a piece fall off and discover that it's a real human body. So that's how the legend goes, right? Turns out this actually happened. So back in 1976, during the filming of an episode of the $6 Million Man, never
Wow.
heard of it. Do you know what
You've
that is?
never heard about the...
No.
Okay, so because I haven't heard about this stupid mummy, the Funhouse mummy, you're shocked, but you've never heard of the $6 Million Man? Mm-mm. His name was Steve Austin before Stone Cold Steve Austin.
What?
I'm sure you've heard the sound effect.
What's the sound effect?
Like anytime he does something like super special, because he's like a cyborg is what he is.
What?
It's like we have the technology. We can make... You've never heard this before.
No.
Oh my God.
I don't know what that is. Anyway.
This is so painful right now.
So, the crew came across a similar prop, this mummified body. They were setting up in a haunted house at the New Pike Amusement Park in Long Beach, California, when they came across this quote-unquote hanging man prop. While moving it, someone accidentally knocked one of its arms off and discovered that there was real, like, human skin and bones inside when they tried to reattach the arm, you know?
That's so gross.
I don't know if this had anything to do with it, but the park did close in 1979, only 3 years later. So it didn't last long after that.
So it was an actual body?
It was an actual body. It only gets weirder. The body wasn't just anyone. It was the body of Elmer McCurdy, a criminal killed in a shootout after having robbed a train in 1911.
That makes no sense. That's like, what, 60 years? 65 years.
Yep. And what he got killed for was $46 and 2 jugs of whiskey.
Wow. I mean, inflation adjusted.
But 2 jugs of whiskey, it's like if I went into the fucking liquor store right now and was like, hey, give me 2 handles and $46. You know,
I mean, with inflation,
that's not
it would
even
be
a
like
felony.
$1,000.
That's not even a felony.
How much is a felony?
$300.
Oh, well, $46 adjusted for inflation has got to be like $1,000 at this point.
Oh, maybe you're right.
Easily.
But 1911. Okay. Anyway, crime does not pay. Doesn't matter.
I like that Robin's like figuring out how much she can rob liquor stores for and not worry about a felony.
Anyway, how this body ended up in a funhouse, you might ask. It was just kind of a result of actions down the line. Like, things it's this happened, so this happened, so this happened kind of thing. And the Undertaker, who embalmed him, was so proud of the work that he'd done that he propped McCurdy up on display at his funeral home and made him like a local attraction known as the, quote, bandit who wouldn't give up. The bandit who wouldn't give up, end quote. That was the title.
That's really morbid and also very, very stupid.
He wanted to show people how good his work was and charged 5 cents to people to see the body. They would pay by, get this, putting a nickel into the body's mouth.
What?
He
turned him into a piggy bank.
How he removed the nickels, like the coins, afterwards.
He put his mouth to his anus and he sucked it out.
I'll leave that up to everybody's imagination because I have no clue. I don't even know. He held him upside down and started shaking him. That's how he did it.
Yeah. I was quoting Ned from an episode of Try Guys where we're arguing about whether or not...
Oh, God, the straw thing with the 2 holes.
Does a straw have 1 hole or 2? And then they compare it to, like, a human being with, like, your throat and your butthole. Does that make you a straw?
Yeah, Keith is genius.
And Ned was just like, if you're drinking a glass of milk and I put my mouth on your anus, I can't suck the milk through you.
They're so funny. I love the Try Guys. Shout out. Well, 5 years later, McCurdy's brothers eventually came to claim his body. When I say brothers, I mean quote-unquote brothers. They were actually carnival promoters. So
they lied to steal the attraction.
This is 5 years later, okay?
This is some carny shit. This is awesome.
Why would his brothers come and pick him up 5 years later?
I mean, I'm sure if I was one of these guys lying through my teeth, I'd be like, I didn't know you did this to my brother. How dare you?
Well, they took McCurdy's body on a cross-country fun time. They went to so many different carnivals all over the country. His mummified corpse was toted on a morbid mystery tour all over America, displayed at various carnivals, ultimately ending up in Long Beach. When investigators examined the body, they found a penny from 1924.
Oh my God.
And a ticket from Sunny Amusement's Museum of Crime wedged in his throat. They also found a gunshot wound to the chest with bullet intact, which helped investigators by allowing them to trace back to the manufacturer of said bullet. McCurdy is now buried in Guthrie, Oklahoma, in the Boot Hill section of the Summit View Cemetery under 2 cubic yards of concrete.
Wow. They just didn't want him coming
They're
back
like,
out.
We don't need him to go on any other adventures. The cemetery, what are they called? Gravekeepers? Is that what they're called?
Yeah.
Are told, like, don't let this one go anywhere. Because it's such a popular body. It's been all over, you know what I mean? Apparently, you can see McCurdy's body in several portions of the film Narcotic from 1933.
Wow.
Because they also filmed in that funhouse.
That's so fucked up.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's fucking insane.
And it's real.
And yeah, it's real. Like, we'll post pictures of his body later, but...
Wow,
yeah.
That's so morbid. We'll post pictures of this human
It's a
being.
mummy, okay?
It's not a mummy. He wasn't properly mummified.
It looks like a mummy in the picture. Did you see when I sent it to you?
Well, I mean, you sent me the one, but I was too engrossed in my research.
Okay.
But I'm pretty sure you have to, like, rip out their tongue and then curse them, and then when they come back, they bring the 10 plagues of Egypt. I've seen some documentary. I've seen some documentary called The Mummy. It was filmed a long time ago. So... Right on. That was really good. Those were good urban legends. I appreciate that.
I just thought they were fun. I love urban legends. I think they're really fun to do. They're really intriguing. And yeah, it was cool. Good times.
On. Good times indeed. I enjoyed that. Before we move into my topic, though, we're going to take a quick commercial break.
And now we're back. What up?
Hey, how's it going? So this week I knew I wanted to cover some bizarre disappearance or disappearances. I had been mentioning it for a couple of days. I just wasn't sure the case. I just had the theme in mind. So I started doing some research on some different disappearances, and then I found one that I thought was the right fit. I actually had some suggested from some friends and from some spooky friends that will eventually wind up, being done for the show, but this one just came out of the blue. In the course of digging through these cold cases for details, I found more than one, which is why I'm going to share them both with you. I do want to mention that disappearances aren't normally what I cover. I cover like cryptids, haunted houses, possessions typically, and I venture into true crime here and there because I like to investigate things that there's not really a solid answer for, but try and extract as much truth from it as possible, you know?
Yeah.
When it comes to disappearance, there is no caveat that this could all be bullshit. This is all true. These were real people that disappeared.
That's why they call it true crime.
Exactly. And in some cases, these are people who passed away. And there are real families out there either still looking for answers or they're still hurting. So I'm going to give you the facts that are known and the fates, if I can find them, of the folks involved, and then the theories on what could have happened if I can't determine what happened to someone. So that said, here we go. The first disappearance I'm going to cover actually leads into my second in a really, really bizarre way. When I found this case, in fact, I thought this is exactly what I'm looking for. So this story takes place in a mysterious and unknown land called Colorado, and I hope I'm saying that correctly.
Colorado?
Colorado. To be more specific, it takes place in a town called Silver Plume. Now, Silver Plume is a small town, and when I say
pretty.
small, I mean small. It's funny because I thought the same thing. Like, it does sound pretty. I've been doing a lot of location topics recently. It's just sort of coincidence. I think it's just what I'm into right now. But this town in particular, I keep saying like, oh, this place is small. When I say that this is a small town, I mean its total area is 0.26 square miles.
How's that possible?
It is tiny. I mean, like Boone Grove, the town I went to high school in, is like a road. Like,
What?
you could run from the post office to the end of town in like, I don't know, 2 minutes. So some places really are that small. As of 2018, the population was said to be 176 people. At the time that this took place, however, it was estimated to be right around 134. I know it sounds tiny, but it is just an hour drive west of Denver. Believe it or not, I did not find this information out while doing research for last week when I covered that haunted stretch of road just north of Denver. I'm not doing haunted Denver. It just so happened to go back there because apparently it's a really fucked up and scary place.
All right.
So that time period that we're going to go back to was 1987. Y'all remember 1987, don't you?
I wasn't born yet.
Gallon of gas was 89 cents.
What?
Average salary in the United States was $24,350. And the average cost of a house was $44,040.
That's bullshit. Oh my fuck.
What else happened?
You know what's funny is I grew up in Hawaii, like a huge portion of my life. I lived in Hawaii. When I moved to Texas and gas was $1.26, I fucking shit bricks because gas in Hawaii was almost $4.
Oh my God.
So I was like, how are you guys paying $1? This is insane.
Texas, land of oil, and also it costs so much money to send everything to Hawaii.
Oh my God, it was insane.
Back to the throwback for 1987. What else happened that year?
Gas prices are triggering.
Full House debuted. Simpsons had its first ever appearance. Yep. The Simpsons had its first ever appearance on the Tracy Ullman Show. It was like a little skit. Tracy Ullman is a comedian who's fucking hilarious. She had a skit show that she used to do back, and she still has stuff that she puts out. But yeah, it was the first time The Simpsons ever came on. It was like a 2 to 3 minute skit cartoon that got put up, and I think it was actually making fun of the Lullaby Rockabye Baby, where they're singing it to Maggie. Aww. And she's imagining what it actually is saying, like, now, when the bow breaks, the baby will fall. And, like, that's the end of the fucking song. It's like, the baby falls and dies, bummer. And, like, they put her to sleep, and she's just laying there in the room terrified. I'm pretty sure that was the first appearance ever, but it was in 1987 on the Tracy Ullman Show. Last thing that happened in 1987, Final Fantasy I released in Japan, which is pretty awesome. There's a bunch of other shit that happened in 1987 that I'm not going to bring up. There was once a man living in the town of Silver Plume by the name of Tom Young. Tom owned a local bookstore and seemed, for all intents and purposes, to be a normal man living in a small town. Tom had a black lab named Gus.
Aww.
Tom liked to shoot the shit at a local cafe in town called KP Cafe. Like Kevin Penis Cafe, but just the initials. KP Cafe. One thing he talked about to folks around town was a vacation he was going to be taking. He was going to be traveling to Europe for 3 weeks. And on September 7th, 1987, Tom departed his store and locked it up, waved bye to a few folks he saw, and then he was gone. And that was the last time anyone ever saw Tom alive.
What?
Because he said he was going to be gone for 3 weeks on vacation, people didn't even report him missing until the 28th came and went, and Tom didn't show back up. People were like, well, it's been 3 weeks. He should be home. He's not home.
Did they tell him, like, where he went? Like, exactly where he went?
He just said he might go here, he might go there in Europe. He named a couple of locations, which were just countries in general. I don't think anyone was really prying. He was just giving them that information. But more time passed, and Tom just never came home. And it was baffling. No one knew what happened. Some folks thought maybe he just stayed in Europe. Others were worried something terrible happened to him while he was abroad or on vacation.
Like hostile?
Yeah, who knows? Like, either way, they felt like they had no way of knowing. They just knew he was missing. The authorities contacted his family regarding his whereabouts. His mother, who was in her 70s, didn't know where he was and was not aware of any travel plans. They checked with the local kennel because he usually boarded Gus when he traveled, only to find out that he had not boarded his dog. The dog was also missing. His mother wound up traveling to Silver Plume to handle some of his personal affairs and ensure that his belongings were taken care of and stored until they could figure out what happened. No one knew what to make of it. Tom simply just disappeared. And it stayed that way for a while, too. But time marched forward. Then, in June of 1988, roughly 9 months after Tom's disappearance, a man named Keith Reinhard steps into this story. Keith was a resident of Algonquin, Illinois, which is a suburb of Chicago. He and his wife of 3 years, named Carolyn, had 2 children. He was actually a sports writer for the Daily Herald, a publication out of Chicago. He was 49 years old at the time. I found one website that said 47, a bunch that said 48, and the rest said 50. They were all wrong. I found his fucking birthday. He was 49 years old when this happened, and he was possibly undergoing what is typically referred to as a midlife crisis. He spoke to his wife about this longing to travel to a remote location and work on a novel alone. And although it must have saddened her deeply to hear it, especially since they had 2 kids, she did encourage him to chase his dream.
Well, that's depressing.
He had a friend named Ted Parker who had been speaking to him about the quote-unquote simple life, you know? Like how Chicago, even in the suburbs, was like too much hustle and bustle, and a small town was where Ted preferred to be. And whether it's what Keith really wanted, or was one of those grass is always greener on the other side things, I can't be sure of, but what I am sure of is what happens next. He goes into work, he informs them he's taking a 3-month sabbatical, which is just going in and saying, like, I'm not going to be back for 90 days, but I want to keep my job. He packs his stuff up, and he heads for Silver Plume, Colorado. He hoped to take in this simple life while writing his novel, maybe lose some weight, get back into shape through hiking, and conquer his fear of heights. He was apparently terrified of heights. As a side note, the Rocky Mountains is quite a place to do that, because the Rocky Mountains are really tall. One of the most triggering moments I've had, and I'm not really afraid of heights too bad, was driving through the Rocky Mountains at night through ice, and really feeling like I was going to slide off a mountain and die. It was horrifying, and when the sun came up, I realized, like, I wasn't really even on a mountain. I was on a hill that was a super, super low grade. Like, I could have gotten out of my car and just, like, rolled down a little bit. I wouldn't have been hurt. I could have driven off the fucking road and been fine. But it didn't feel like that because it was so dark out and there was nothing around, so I just imagined just a fucking sheer drop-off.
All right.
Because I'm dumb. Anyways, according to the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, or CBI, kind of like the FBI, he obtained a small apartment in the back of an abandoned Catholic church to live in. In addition to that, he rented a small shop and sold matted photographs out of it. The shop happened to be directly next to Ted Parker, his friend's place of business. That place of business was known as KP Cafe. Keith was renting the space that until recently was occupied by none other than Tom Young, who is still missing at this time. A lot of the information I can find on how people viewed Keith was he was very likable, but he wasn't very realistic. He romanticized quite a bit, including this idea he had that he could relocate his family to town and live off of the photograph business. He really wanted this simple life. He wanted to get his family out there, but he also wanted to write this novel.
But wouldn't that, like, be counterproductive because he said he wanted to do it alone?
I think he has this idea that he's going to write this novel, finish it, then move his family out there, and then they're going to live off of, like, this simple business and all the money he makes off of his novel. And he also seems to be fascinated with the disappearance of Tom Young.
Now, one thing I could not really find for the life of me was whether or not Keith and Tom knew each other. I saw a couple of websites refer to them as having met each other before Tom went missing, based through like the acquaintanceship that he had with Ted. And then one or two other websites refer to them as, quote, loose acquaintances. But the mystery of where Tom went seemed to really draw in Keith. And Keith started writing a novel with a main character called Guy Gypsum, which is just such a like fancy name. It sounds like a detective novel. The character was a hybrid between a self-insert of Keith himself and Tom. And it's possible that the mystery of Tom's disappearance is what inspired Keith to relocate here and write this novel to put himself in Tom's headspace while he did this, you know?
Yeah.
He wanted to be in the place where Tom was before this happened. Now, Keith spent June and July there, so that's 60 of his 90 days, while working on this novel, trying to find a way to live this dream he really seems to be, like, hoping to live. He's interviewing locals about Tom, asking them if they want to buy a matted photo, because that's what he does now. And things just sort of changed significantly forever on July 31st, 1988. While on a trek across the mountain, some hikers came across the skeletal remains of Tom Young and his dog, Gus.
And his dog?
Yes. So, obviously, there's going to be pictures of these these human beings. I think I'm also going to include the picture of the skeletal remains, because it's just like they found bones in the woods, you know? But, they've been out there for less than a year, and it looks like it's just skeletons next to each other. So,
why did the dog end up with him, though? Because if he died first, does that mean the person murdered the dog?
Well, let me go through the details, and then we'll come up with our conclusions after that.
Oh, God, okay.
Next to Tom was a revolver that he had purchased a week prior to going on vacation, quote unquote. Tom and his dog had both been shot in the head. It has been very difficult to locate documentation regarding the investigation done into Tom's death. Colorado has death records listed as confidential, and I cannot get into them at all. I have not been able to find any official documents as to Tom's case. Keith's shit is everywhere. Tom's stuff is like a blurb in Keith's file. It's really, really weird. The time frame in which he purchased the gun and the proximity to the body, along with the fact that the dog and Tom were both shot in the head, seem to be leading factors in his death being ruled a suicide. They believe he shot his dog and then shot himself. Now, the internet claims, so it's probably not true, but who knows, that no tests have been run, ballistics, anything like that, to see if Tom had actually fired the gun.
Can you, though, on
That's
bones?
what I put, too. I'm not sure what tests would be able to be run based off the state of the remains, because they were quite decomposed.
Well, like, it's if they're just bones, there's no more residue to test. Right?
I don't even know what they'd be looking for aside from like fingerprints, you know, like on the gun itself, which I imagine they would check, but I don't know. Now, the people of Silver Plume did not agree with the assessment based off of being around Tom for so long. It just wasn't his general demeanor. It didn't seem like something he would do. I know people say suicide is always a shock, but people refuse to believe it, and they state that if that would happen, he would not have shot his dog.
Right.
They don't think that would have happened at all.
Only sick fucks shoot their dogs.
I think there's a lot of things to speculate about, but if I'm in the woods and I took my dog, I think it's because I want to make sure I'm safe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's a fucking black lab, too. Like, I want my dog to have my back if something's happening, and when they wind up both shot in the head, that immediately seems really suspect to me. So, it was suspect to the people of Silver Plume. Other people still find it suspect, but it's officially case closed as a suicide. Now, Keith continued to write his novel, which is about Tom. So when this happens, it's kind of a big deal. On August 6th, so 6 days later, Keith's friend Ted was hosting a party. Keith was there, mingling with folks. They say it spilled over from Ted's place into Keith's place. I'm sorry, it spilled over from Ted's place into Keith's place. People were just sort of going back and forth. The official report that I read has witness accounts that range from, quote, seemed sober to, quote, definitely drunk. So like any story, depending on who you're talking to, it's complete opposite ends of the spectrum.
I feel like it also depends on what you consider drunk and sober.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's really hard to tell when someone's wasted.
Yeah, because I can be drunk and people have no idea. They're like, you act the exact same.
No.
And I'm like, oh, I'm hammered. But I will say also, depending on when someone came across him during this party, both of those things could totally be likely. There are quite a few parties that I went to where someone left early, they would describe me as, quote, seemed sober. But if they stayed later and someone asked them the same question the next day, they would describe me as, quote, fucking hammered instead, because it just sort of happens, you know? Sometimes you just fall off that cliff, you don't know what's coming. Some accounts also describe him being in the company of a, quote, mystery woman. This mystery woman remains seemingly unknown as far as I can tell, but is said to have been either named Gretchen or Greta. No one's quite sure.
Okay.
During the time of the party, Keith asked several folks to go hiking with him the next day. A resident known as Larry Doherty last saw Keith at noon the next day on August 7th. He stated he was asked at the party or asked the next day. It wasn't quite clear to me, but he was asked if he wanted to go hiking. He told him, "Nah, dog, I'm good." He was trying to go and hike Pendleton Mountain, which apparently is a very difficult hike. Keith wasn't in very good shape and was unfamiliar with most of the trails, and apparently the path he intended to take wasn't so much a trail as much as it was just wilderness.
Wow.
Like thick, overgrown wilderness that he was going to try and take. And this fucking mountain, Pendleton Mountain, has like a peak over 12,000 fucking feet. It's big. It's a tall, like, if you go to Google Maps and find this town and drop the dude, like, on the road leading up to Pendleton Mountain, and it just shows you what it looks like, it's a 60-degree incline.
What?
It is super tall, and I'm like, he's going to conquer his fear of heights and be out of shape and just go for it. In addition to that, Keith intended to depart to start this hike at 5 p.m.
That sounds sketch.
Yeah, granted there is a lot of sunlight in the summer still, but 5 p.m. to take this treacherous hike just seems like a terrible idea. And people were just like, that's just Keith. He's going to be back. Don't worry, like, he's not going to make it.
What a silly fuck.
Some folks say he was also hungover from the night before, and as a 34-year-old man, I can assure you the 2-day hangover is a very real thing. Like, I can barely hike my stairs after a night of hard drinking for at least 2 days. That said, he headed up the mountain between 4 and 5 p.m. He left the town wearing a white t-shirt covered in a black and red flannel shirt, jeans, and old gym shoes. The stuff that you want to wear when you're hiking, right?
Yeah.
He was never seen again.
What?
Ever.
Shut up.
By the next day, folks were already really concerned that he didn't come back the previous night. It didn't take long for a search party to start looking. The Colorado Alpine Rescue Team became involved, using search dogs like bloodhounds, townsfolk, volunteers, helicopters, planes, and as many resources as they had at their disposal.
Something's out there.
I think the report I read was maybe 20 days after it happened. Maybe they had already spent close to $350,000
oh my goodness.
in the search efforts to find him. That's how intense the search was. There are 3 things about this missing persons case when I was doing research that I found shocking. The first is that according to Unsolved Mysteries, which aired this mystery back on January 31st, 1990, the Colorado Alpine Rescue Team, which was involved, had been in operation for 30 years at that point and had found every single person they had searched for.
Wow.
That is super impressive. The search area for this was incredibly large. It was very much like finding a needle in a haystack. That phrase was used frequently by the people who were organizing it. The second thing that blew my mind is that the search effort to locate Keith Reinhardt is one of the, if not the largest search effort to date in Colorado history.
Wow.
I found it called multiple times the largest. I cannot confirm that personally.
Okay.
It was substantial. Over 10,000 man-hours were put into the search. On August 11th, during that search, this is the third thing that blew my mind, one of the planes being used in the search crashed.
What?
The pilot,
there's demons up there on that
named
mountain.
Terry Leedens, died. And his co-pilot / spotter, not exactly sure what the other person was doing, was severely injured. On August 14th, 1988, the search was officially called off. Climbing the mountain seems like a way Keith was confronting his fears, and the simplest explanation in this is that he fell in some unknown location that is very remote, and he's just never been recovered. He just passed away on the mountain, and no one's been able to find him. Some folks have theorized he was going to the mountain at such a late hour not to confront his fears, but to take photos to sell. He wanted to get some sort of amazing photo of the sunset.
That makes sense.
That was dismissed when investigators searched his apartment and found both his cameras.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Which made sense. People were like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense. One of the more fascinating things I found when I was reading the accounts of what happened, and I read this from the officer who wrote this, is that one of the officers on the case was called to the station at 9:30 p.m. on August 9th, 1988, while this search party is still active. A woman claiming to be named Judy was calling from Illinois to Colorado, claiming she was a psychic. She stated they needed to search an area she was seeing, I guess, in her visions or dreams.
What the French toast?
As she described the area, the officer realized it sounded extremely similar to a spot called Pavilion Point. Now, when I was reading this, it talks about, in his own writing, like the first time I talked to her, because he wound up talking to her multiple times, Pavilion Point was an area that Keith may have been going towards. It is also very near where Tom's body was recovered.
What?
Many folks think Keith's true purpose for going to the mountain is the fact that 7 days prior, Tom's body was discovered, and he wanted to go to the spot where they had found Tom. The psychic that was calling described the area of Pavilion Point in its past and current state so accurately that they focused most of their efforts for the ground teams there. It changed where they were searching on the mountain.
Okay, so there has to be some evil stuff going up on that mountain, because that's terrifying.
The officer claims that there were only 2 points during the entire search where the bloodhounds picked up Keith's scent. Pavilion Point was one of them. They picked up his scent before losing it. This made such an impact on the officer that he and his wife searched the area themselves on August 14th, the same day the search was called off, before he decided that it had been searched so thoroughly there was no way he could be there. The officer describes the landscape itself as pockmarked with small holes and large mine shafts. It was incredibly overgrown, which made searching difficult and downright dangerous. It's like you're walking through the thickest forest you can imagine, it sounds like. Even the search dogs wound up with injured paws and had to be carried to cars and trucks to get them off the mountains because the terrain was so treacherous. The saddest part of this for me personally, is that Keith's wife was set to arrive on August 11th to see him 4 days after he went to the mountain. According to witnesses and people that had spoken to him, Keith was actually really excited to see her. She wound up arriving on August 11th, the day after the plane crash. And in her first public appearance to anyone since this happened, she went and offered condolences to the pilot's family who died while searching for her husband.
Oh my gosh.
This one is just shocking and sad. Aside from the dogs picking up the scent of Keith twice before losing it, no clues were ever recovered. No sign of Keith was ever discovered. Nothing. He simply disappeared. A psychic calling town to advise them of where to search when it was such a large area is so bizarre, but also really, really suspicious. Like, who the hell was she? I feel like the first thing my head went to is, was she steering them somewhere deliberately so they wouldn't find him? Like, she knew the dogs would pick up the scent there to make them think they needed to search there, but at the same time, it was pushing them away from where he actually was.
I think psychics are real.
I tried to do as much research as I could via the internet, but I couldn't find any information about this Judy character in anything at all. One thing I thought to research when I was trying to figure out, like, well, what else is there that I could dig into, was the connection, the one connection that I did know Tom and Keith had, which is the building. They rented out the same building for their business, you know? And this is where things, for me, get really fucking weird. So I found one story done by CBS4, which is the local affiliate there, in 2018 for the 30th anniversary of the event.
Wow.
They walked around the town with Keith's son, Kai, who's a grown-ass man now. It is really sad. And his son states during that what so many folks think to this day. Tom and Keith, in his opinion, both did not die of natural causes. They both found something or found out about something that they shouldn't have and wound up dead because of it.
Wow.
He thinks it was foul play. He thinks it was murder. While I was reading through this report by CBS4, I noticed one sentence that I could not find anywhere else. When describing Keith, CBS4 wrote, his father set up a shop in the old Knights of Pythias building.
That's that abandoned Catholic church you're talking about? Or?
No. That's the shop. The shop he worked in.
Oh, okay, got it.
So that's where he was working. That's where Tom had been working, in the old Knights of Pythias building. This, of course, prompted the question, who the fuck are the Knights of Pythias? Never heard of the Knights of Pythias before.
Is it Pythias or Pythias?
It's Pythias, so however you want to say it. I did some research. I decided to look up who they were, since no one else has talked about the fact that this used to be their building, except CBS4, the local affiliate, who knows who they are. So I'm like, all right, let's figure it out. So I did some Googling. The Knights of Pythias or Pythias, whatever, are merely a secret society founded in Washington, D.C.
What?
It's a fraternal organization, but not like a frat in college.
Oh my gosh.
It's like the Stonecutters and the Simpsons or any of the other fraternal orders, like, I don't know, the Freemasons.
I was just thinking, like, this is near Denver, and that airport
No
in Denver.
shit, right?
Like, oh my god.
It's a secret
What?
grown-ups club is what this is. So my next question was, were they one of the big ones, or were they just one of the groups that were founded when this used to be a big thing? Because this used to be a really big thing. Like, the peak of, like, the fraternal orders was, like, the 1920s, apparently. Turns out, the Knights of Pythias or Pythias, whatever, were the first fraternal organization to get a charter in the United States in 1864. They only claim to have 50,000 members as of 2003, but back in the early 1920s, during the peak,
Whoa.
they had over 1 million members.
Oh my goodness.
To get in, you had to be a male in good health, I don't know what the fuck good health is, who believed in a supreme being. And it sounds like they left the supreme being part vague, so people across different sects of Christianity, or even other religions, could qualify.
All right.
You had to be 18 years old. You were not allowed to be a professional gambler or involved with drugs or booze, especially the sale of either. You had all of those things you had to qualify by having all those things lined up. The crest has the letters FCB on it, which stand for Friendship, Charity, and Benevolence. That's
a fucking crock of shit.
This is the actual, don't do that because they're probably still out there. This is the actual oath taken by members. I declare upon honor that I believe in a supreme being, that I am not a professional gambler or unlawfully engaged in the wholesale or retail sale of intoxicating liquors or narcotics, and that I believe in the maintenance of the order and the upholding of constituted authority in the government in which I live.
Oh, what?
Moreover, I declare upon honor that I am not a communist or fascist, that I do not advocate, nor am I a member of any organization that advocates the overthrow of the government of the country of which I am a citizen, by force or violence or other unlawful means, and that I do not seek by force or violence to deny to other persons their rights under the laws of such country.
This sounds fucking crazy.
This oath doesn't just seem like it's about booze or drugs.
Sounds like control.
It's control and keeping order.
Oh,
which is really, really weird. They used to give people swords upon their initiation that have FCB on the blades. This shop didn't just sell photographs, it was an antique shop too.
So
and I really
want
to search for this fucking sword there, or find out if there's some sort of sword there. So anyways, now I'm not saying these folks had anything to do with it. From what I can tell, they all seem like they're really good people. And I'm going to get to that here at the end. And this part might blow your mind a little bit too, but I find it bizarre that this building was once both the building for the Knights of Pythias and the place that these two people who went missing, one of which is dead, wound up residing in back to back. And the other one was obsessed with why one of them wound up dead. So if people think these two stumbled onto something that they shouldn't have, their shared place of business being the former location for a secret society seems like a big piece of that puzzle that no one talks about.
How about we don't talk about it either?
Right? But who knows? I don't know any Knights of Pythias or Pythian Knights or however you're supposed to say it. Do you? Do you know any?
I don't know any knights.
Okay.
Unless they are at the round table at
And you know
medieval
all of them?
times.
Okay, cool. I mean,
I don't fucking know.
I don't know any personally. There are some that most of us have heard of. Most notably, the following. Louis Armstrong.
Shut up.
Was a Knight of Pythias. William Hayward, the co-founder of Citizens Bank. I haven't heard of him. I've heard of Citizens Bank. Multiple senators and House representatives, 2 Supreme Court justices, 2 vice presidents, and William McKinley, Warren G. Harding, and Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
Fuck off.
All 3 of which
off.
were U.S. presidents. And if those fucking names sound familiar, it's because I talked about them in episode 73. All 3 of them died while in office under the Tecumseh Curse. All 3 of them. 2 of them died of natural causes. 1 was assassinated.
Shut the fuck
They were all
up.
Knights of Pythias. Now, I'm not saying they are bad guys. I'm just saying it's a very large and prestigious secret society I had never fucking heard of until I did the research.
What? Oh, God, this whole thing.
I was telling her before we did this episode, I'm like, I'm about to blow the fucking lid off this thing, babe. We need to move. We need to go off the grid. All right. They're said to provide assistance for, quote, worthy Pythians or Pythians in distress. So it makes me wonder if either of these 2 maybe had been part of this secret society, because maybe the knights know what happened. Maybe they're not the culprits. Maybe they're the people who went and settled this shit, which is why no one was able to resolve it, because they're like, we're going to take care of this, make sure no one else gets in our way. You just don't know. It's so crazy. Like, I'm just grasping at straws here. I qualify for all of these things. It's like, it's a 30-year-old mystery, and this seems like a really big detail. Now, I will say, I came across a documentary that's in the making right now about this particular mystery. I don't know if the Knights are involved at all. I think that's just something I stumbled across and decided to make into a big deal. But this documentary that's coming out later in 2020 is called Dark Side of the Mountain. It has some really, really good shit.
That's a good name.
They're doing a ton of work. I was going through their website and seeing all the interviews they're doing with, like, family members, people that lived there at the time, people that still live there. I was like, I wished it was out so I could watch it. And as soon as I saw it, I considered, like, should I stop this topic and wait? And I was like, no, I want to tell people about it now.
You heard it here first.
I've already started going into the Knights of Pythias, so if I disappear, you guys have to come fucking looking for me. So you guys have to go get Robert Langdon and figure out who took me. But this fucking documentary,
That's
Dark
how
Side,
this feels. It
does feel that a little bit.
Feels.
Dark Side of the Mountain comes out later this year. I actually reached out to them to see if we could talk to anyone involved in production in any way, shape, or form to get some sort of information, or maybe even some form of interview on the show. I don't know if they'll get back to us.
I don't think so.
They probably won't.
We're too small. We're baby potatoes.
I will say the only other time I reached out to anyone who's filming a documentary about something was about an alien encounter that is fucking mind-blowing, that they've been working on for like a decade. They got back to me in a few days and they said they would be more than willing to do an interview for the show, but they wanted to wait until it was closer to release or after release because they're so insanely busy. I was like, cool. And that one is still waiting for me to do because I want to get, back from them. But this one, I found it all tonight and I was like, no, it has to go up. I have to do it now. And we might, if they get back to us, we might revisit this. And I just might have an episode where I say, like, here's what I found out for the people that are shooting the documentary to this thing that we already talked about, which would be fucking awesome. But who knows? It's a 30-year-old mystery that involves a secret society, a missing person who is never found, and someone who is mysteriously killed with a bullet to the head.
My mind is blown.
This one was really good.
Yeah, this is cool.
So that is everything I have for the bizarre disappearance of Tom Young and Keith Reinhardt. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I don't go fucking missing now. This is one of those where I started researching it and I was just talking a bunch of shit to Robin. Like, oh man, like this is just getting crazier and crazier. So I hope that's how it unfolded as I went through the topic for you folks as well. So that is about everything we have for episode 126. We hope you all enjoyed it. If you have a story you would like to share with us, please email storytime@scaryish.com, or you can go to any of our social medias. Our Facebook is facebook.com/scarishpodcast. Our Instagram is @scarishpodcast, and our Twitter is @scarishpod. And if you want to go to our website, scarish.com, and click on Contact Us, send us your correspondence that way. That also works. Robin, for folks who like to donate to us, how can they do so?
You can go to patreon.com/scaryish podcast. Those are monthly donations. Whole bunch of different tiers to check out. So please do. There's lots of stuff on there. Discount codes, things like that. And we have a Ko-fi, ko-fi.com/Scaryish podcast. Those are one-time donations. All the donations go to helping us upgrade our studio setup. We also have new merch up on our Etsy and our Teespring stores. So if you folks want to check that stuff out, links are on our website. So check all that new stuff.
Indeed. So I think that's just about everything we have for episode 126. I'll probably not be here next episode. I'll be replaced by someone else. Who knows? But go ahead and sign us out, Robin.
Keep on creeping on, and we'll talk to you next week. Maybe later.
Bye.
If Adam doesn't disappear. Okay, bye.